this point?
So I think that fired at this point would be a little on the aggressive side, even though I don't disagree with you when it comes to the way that the NFL is now, is that people just get fired after 1 year as head coaches and things like that. We saw that in
Well, that's Cleveland. I mean, that's
Cleveland.
every year in Cleveland. But I'm talking about, like,
right.
look
Outside
at Mike
of that,
McCarthy in Green Bay. I mean, even Green Bay has such a rich history of football that you would think if anybody was going to show respect to a football coach, it would be Green Bay. And they were like, no, you got to go. There's the door, go.
Yeah. And so I would not say that it would happen this week that one side or the other, Gruden or Mike Zimmer, would be fired if they struggle against Oakland. But it would, I would say, ramp up the heat to about a 9 out of 10 on Mike Zimmer, because then you look at the schedule going forward. I mean, you have to go to Chicago in week 4. If you come up short here, I mean, you are talking about an incredible amount of pressure. And I do think it's realistic to talk about how much the pendulum swings with that one game. I don't think this week could do it, but if you were talking about a loss this week and then you go into Chicago and pull a no-show, I mean, then I think everyone's looking around saying, well, we've got to do something even more desperate than trying to trade for a cornerback. We have to take a big swing here. And I remember Courtney talking about, even before the season, if things didn't start out well, you might be talking about a different offensive coordinator, a different play caller, especially Alex, and I want to get into this with you, but I went back and watched every play, and every time they tried a play action bootleg, Green Bay was right there in Kirk Cousins' face. So that's the play you call in the biggest situation of the game. I mean, there is so much pressure on everyone that this game is kind of being looked at a little bit of, well, you just beat Oakland at home. But last year we thought the same thing about Buffalo, and they pulled a no-show. If that happens again, then absolutely the pressure is out of this world on this team.
That could be a tough curse, especially because it was the same week as last year, and you're getting over a tough week, a tough loss. And last year they did just tied against Green Bay. Like, this is kind of getting a little creepy. But my question to you is, if you're going to fire the play caller, who are you firing? Because you can't fire both of them.
That's a good question.
You're not going to fire Stefanski and Kubiak. Who gets fired? Because to me, I know the answer of who's getting fired. I'm just wondering if you know the answer.
The answer has to be Kevin Stefanski, and Gary Kubiak would be on the sideline the next week, right?
Correct.
I mean, that's what
There's
would happen.
no way that they're going to let Kubiak go into that bus ride. Like, that would just be the most ungodly thing that could happen. So, and then all of a sudden everyone's turning around again saying, well, what are we going to do now? Because here we are again. We're running this old offense that everyone's been running for years. And I mean, I read your article and I really liked it, what you were talking about in your article, and I hope that we can talk about it later. But, if you don't win this week, I think somebody's getting fired.
Well,
because there's too much talent. I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe it's not Sim. Maybe that's an aggressive move. Maybe it's the OC. Hey, listen, we can't lose to Oakland. They're coming off something that should just decimate their season.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let them come into our house and kick us around. Like, that's just not how it goes. We're a defensive team. I get that. But on the other side of the ball, you guys have to put up at least 14, 21 points to help us.
Can you imagine how it would look if they pulled a no-show the next 2 weeks? They blow up against Oakland, then Chicago just eats them alive. Can you imagine how that would look if Mike Zimmer had to make another change at offensive coordinator? I mean, you have Norv quits because he was unhappy with the situation. And, people that I've asked have said it was legit him quitting, not being fired, but still, he just walks away, and then you fire John DeFilippo. Pat Shurmur takes the job where he probably shouldn't have taken a job in New York. And now you're here with another inexperienced play caller who, in my mind, completely choked as much as Kirk Cousins choked in that situation, especially considering the fact that Green Bay was on top of those plays all day long. I mean, this thing right here, Alex, it very much has the possibility of, okay, you beat Oakland, go to Chicago, pull off a big win there, and then you're rolling and everyone's on the same page and this locker room is gelled together, after the Green Bay. Or you're talking about this thing could implode and end up like what Jacksonville was last year, where they thought they were going to be in the Super Bowl and they end up completely out of it. And now they look like a mess of a franchise.
Yeah, I mean, this has a chance within 1 week. I mean, you're looking at, this is the week right here to me, the test week. You're in between a tough game that you should have won, right? But it's really physical, and you're kind of looking at that Chicago game down the road, because we all say we don't do it, but we're all looking at the schedule like, okay, listen, guys, if we can just get through the first half of this Oakland game and put up a whole bunch of points, we can coast through the second half and get our minds on Chicago. But that's the problem, is as a player, nobody pulls you out of that moment and says, listen, dude, you're going to overlook a crappy team, but they're going to look really good against you guys because you're going to look even worse. And I've seen that happen. And it's so easy to go down that rabbit hole because you're looking at Chicago and you're saying, here's a tough defense. They're going to stop the run and they're going to force Kirk to throw it. What are we going to do? And as a player, you're like, man, is there anything I can think of? Is there, you start overlooking this, crummy Oakland team that everyone was down on, but maybe now might have a little bit of life to them. And it's a dangerous situation for the Vikings.
Yeah, and this has happened a few times for the Vikings under Mike Zimmer, including 2016 Indianapolis with the Green Bay game looming after that. And then last year, Buffalo with the Los Angeles game coming up on a Thursday night right after that, I believe it was. And so even though I don't necessarily believe in trap games, usually I believe that NFL teams are good at football and one team can beat another on any given day, but it has happened to this team. So it does seem like a real